As the mayor, and as I get ready to start here this evening, I just want to tell you very quickly a statement that Lyndon Johnson made years ago, and you'll remember President Johnson. He said, "When the burdens of the presidency seem unusually heavy, I always remind myself it could be worse. I could be a mayor." So I want you to keep that in mind as I speak here a little bit this evening. I do want to thank all of you for the opportunity, and Historical Society for the opportunity allowing me to come and speak. And again, I think it's very appropriate that we do this here at the Historical Society because, again, everything we do today obviously becomes tomorrow's history. And so it's quite relevant to be here, and I appreciate that. I can tell you that I'm a lifelong resident of Anderson. My granddaughter was born 3 years ago, and she would make 6 generations of folks in our family as part of Madison County and Anderson, Indiana. So I'm proud to be here and proud to be your mayor, certainly. I know that Anderson is a great place. When I grew up here, I had no intention of ever leaving here. My family, my children are still here. As I said, my granddaughter's obviously still here. And we anticipate being here for a long, long, long time. So someday out at Maplewood or somewhere, that's where I assume I'll end up. And but again, I'm proud to be a part of Anderson and really appreciate the opportunity to serve the folks here in Madison County. I do believe that Anderson is a great community, and I'm proud today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing for the last year. Of course, I was here last year, and many of you I see in the crowd were here as well. And you may remember some of the remarks that I made at that time. And I'll try not to become too redundant. I can tell you that many projects that we start, things don't always necessarily go at a year at a time or a few months at a time. We were just talking upstairs, looking at the upstairs museum that's being built out. It's been going on for 3 years. So it takes a while sometimes to build the things that you think are important to build. And continuing to build this community and make it a strong community is something that takes time over time. And it's taken a lifetime, really, to get where we are today. And so we will continue to do the things that we do to help make the community a better place to live. And I'm very confident that that will continue. Thought I'd start out a little bit today. If you had the chance to see the Anderson newspaper, if you haven't, I would invite you and suggest that you get a copy. The Anderson newspaper and the reporters, and Ken's here this evening, they did a great job in covering a lot of the matters going on here in the community across Madison County. And they talked a lot about what was happening in the city, but they talked about that in terms of not just the city and government, but they talked about business and the health and our hospitals and really all aspects of life here in Madison County. And I would invite you to check it out. They did that last year as well. They always do a good job at it. And if you read all that, you could leave right now and you wouldn't have to listen to me because a lot of what I'm going to say is in there. It was recently stated at the end of December, our Economic Development Director made note that 2017 had been the best year that we'd had in a number of years in terms of our investment dollars and our job creation here in the city. In 2017, we had $247 million invested in Anderson through private enterprise and private investment, and we added 679 new job opportunities to the community. It's very important that we continue to aggressively seek out these opportunities, and even though that was a great year, and you obviously can't always make the next year as good as the last and so forth, but you plug along and you do everything you possibly can do, and we will continue to aggressively seek out these opportunities. One of the things that we're presently doing, in fact, it was on Friday that we took this step. We are applying to the governor of the state to have part of our community named as an opportunity zone. What an opportunity zone is, the Congress, most recently when they passed the tax legislation in Washington, they passed a bill that would allow states to declare certain areas that are typically in low and moderate income areas to be what they call opportunity zones. And an opportunity zone will allow investors to be able to invest into those particular areas and then be able to shield capital gains from their investments. It's only certain types of investments that apply. And again, it's only for certain types of projects, but there's a lot of projects that we work on a regular basis that would certainly meet the type of projects that would work. The encouragement, of course, is for investors to put their money into these areas, and that's sort of the policy behind it to try to help this to occur. Obviously, it benefits the folks that have the ability to make those larger investments, but again, it gives us some opportunities to capitalize on that without costing local taxpayers any dollars. The governor, under the Opportunity Zone legislation, would be allowed to pick up to 25% of the census tracts. It goes by census tract, but they would be allowed to take up to 25% of the census tract areas in the state and select them for these Opportunity Zones. We have requested that the governor consider 5 of those census tracts here in Anderson. We think that's probably a little bit aggressive, but we think it's more important to make the ask than not to make the ask at all. We were looking at centering on the downtown area, out towards where the Wigwam is from where we are right now, maybe a little bit over towards the Main Street area, all the way towards Madison Avenue. As one of our primary selection areas. We think that with the things that are going on around the Wigwam right now, with a lot of the downtown development that we're trying to work on, we think that would be an opportunity for us to encourage investors to invest down in this area. That would bring us some opportunities. We've also are focusing out on the west side of Anderson. That's a distressed area that's been in that condition for many years, and we've been working on different ways to try to make that area a better place to live and to work and play. And so we felt like that if they would declare that an area opportunity zone, that would help us as well. We've also focused on the area over by the Mounds, not Mounds, I'm sorry, the Mounds Mall. Obviously, we've read about what's going on there right now, but also that area would extend up into the area where the Purdue Polytechnic facility is now. We have a lot of development going on behind that property, Talia Polina and so forth. So we think that land could serve the purpose of being declared opportunity zone as well. So we made that application on Friday. I followed up with a letter today to the governor, and they have 30 days to make a selection of the different places in the state. The governor will have the opportunity to choose up to 156 of those areas, and we're hoping that he does choose some of our areas for sure. It'd be nice if he did all 5, but anything that gets selected will help us in our economic development attributes. So again, that's the most recent update on what we're doing. I can tell you that I'm very proud of the monies that we've been able to bring in through our economic development efforts, and particularly that we've been able to do that while trying to downplay a little bit the tax abatements that we have been giving and that have been given in recent history. Understandable, years ago when we were having a lot of problems after General Motors and so forth left, and we lost so many jobs that we were doing whatever it took to try to land some opportunities. And it got to the point where we were giving 100% tax abatements and so forth. And I've always felt like that we've crossed that threshold now, and there's no reason to continue to do that, and that we should have companies come to us because of the various merits that we have that justify folks coming and doing business in Anderson, Madison County. And so in recent times, the investments that have been made, in particular with regards to that almost $250 million, and each one of those instances, none of those are 100% abatements. All of these are quite a bit less than that, and which means that we put these properties on the tax rolls as soon as they're completed, and we don't have to wait years and years for taxes to roll in. And as I've explained to a lot of these new investors, or these new companies as they come in, if you want us to have good infrastructure, if you want us to have good quality of life in the community to be able to operate in, we have to have some funding for that. We have to have some tax dollars. And so for the most part, they're understanding of that, and we've had many companies come in now without even asking for anything, and that's a great thing for the community. One of our recent companies that came in 2017, as you know, was NTK. NTK sits physically behind where NTN went in a year earlier. It's a $92 million investment, and it will create right about 200 jobs. They scheduled 198 jobs, so nearly 200 jobs, and it's a Japanese company. I had the opportunity last year about this time to go over to Japan and meet with the folks that actually run that company, and they're very appreciative of having the opportunity to come here to Anderson, Indiana to do business, and we're happy that they're here. Over on the area by the Purdue Polytechnic that I was talking about a moment ago, we have Italia Polina. It's another foreign company. We have 9 different companies or countries represented here in the city of Anderson that are doing business over just in the last few years that have come here, that settled in. Italia Polina is a company that's a biotech company. And they are just now finishing up. This is going to be their world headquarters for here in the United States. They're of course headquartered over in Italy right now. The owner of that company has actually moved to Indiana. He didn't move to Hamilton County, unfortunately, but he is living here nearby. And but he did move his family here, and so he's committed to the investment here and being here. And they are also at this point in time in the process of starting to work towards the building of a research and development facility, which will also be a greenhouse because they work in agricultural stuff. And so they are going to be right dead across the street from where they're presently located is where they're going to put that facility. And then they're also looking at expanding a second part of their facility in a separate building behind where they're at. And we expect all that to take place probably in the next 12 to 18 months. So we're happy about those investments that they're bringing in here as well. You recently may have read about the CleanCo from Alexandria that came in from the Alexandria area and purchased the former Widener Chevrolet building that had sat empty for a number of years. And they're looking at investing $3.25 million there and bringing 200 new jobs, not just transferring jobs, but bringing new jobs. One of the companies that came to town and didn't ask for anything whatsoever was Sutong China Tire Resource Center from China. They purchased the former General Motors plant out off of 38th Street, $2 million, and they are up and running now, and they're anticipating hiring up to 30 people as they move forward. We recently worked out a resolution with a company, Tipman Group, which is Interstate Warehousing Incorporated. It's going to be at the intersection of Layton Road and 73rd Street. They are going to be investing initially. It's going to be a 4-phase project is what they're hoping it'll be, depending upon how things go. If it goes as anticipated, it'll be in 4 phases. Their first phase is a $30 million investment, with the initial phase being 60 jobs. What they do is a cold storage, freezing and storage, and one of their clients is Nestle, and so they wanted to be near Nestle because they recognize that if they take product from them and have to store it pending being shipped somewhere, it's obviously a short distance to go from across the street. So they thought that was a good investment for them. And again, we worked out a resolution where they begin paying taxes immediately when they start up. Nestle, of course, which has been here for a few years now, has about 750 employees presently. They went through a number of expansions and just recently announced a $22 million investment that they're making in machinery and equipment. That's going to help retain the jobs that are here and bring a few extra jobs. In addition to that, they've announced a separate expansion of their facility of another $80 million. All this I'm telling you about happened this year. And what's amazing about this is if I was telling the same story in just about any other community of this size, any one or two of those events would be a big deal. And it's really become to the point, I don't want to say it's happening every day, but it happens quite frequently. And it's because people recognize how good it is to do business here locally. We had another business, Financial Forms and Systems, which invested $3.2 million at what we called the A1 building, it's the Accelerator 1 building. It's out by the Flagship Properties. They purchased that building, and it'll be 50 jobs in there eventually once they get up and running full steam. One of our older manufacturing companies here in town that have been here for many, many years, Barber Manufacturing, continues to invest in our community and just recently announced a $167,000 expansion and also an $83,000 investment in personal property to continue to retain and add jobs in the community. We have a newer business called Recycled Polymer Solutions. It's now at the Elston Richards property, which is out on the west side of town. It's an area that most people probably would have thought could very well sit there empty and vacant for years and years. They're investing $2.2 million in creating 12 additional jobs. Of course, we have the financial planner, Joe Clark. Many of you know and read his article off and on in the newspaper. Is building a brand new office building out across from the Flagship at almost $1 million and adding some new jobs as well. The Warner Press building that sat empty for a number of years was purchased by a company called Storage of America. It's going to do more than store, though. They've got all sorts of ideas and things they want to do. They're going to bring 15 jobs, and they're pretty good jobs, $21.63 an hour on the average. They've invested $981,000. Ultimately is what they're going to do. Their initial investment was $200,000. We, of course, are in our second solar farm here in Anderson with IMPA. It's Indiana Municipal Power Association. They've invested $8.4 million in the newest solar park, which is out off of Cross Street. The one's out on Park Road. We buy our energy from IMPA. IMPA is made up of 61 communities across the state, and there's one city out of the state. Anderson was one of the first cities to be involved with IMPA when they first started up, and we actually are a partial shareholder in that, if you will, or owner. But they both purchase property or purchase power, and they also manufacture power through everything from solar to wind to coal. To renewables. And we purchase from them, and it allows us to buy the power cheaper, and then we can resell it to the customer, which of course, for the most part, are our citizens at a lower rate. A lot of people don't know, and I say our citizens because 25% of the customers of Anderson Power and Light actually live outside the city limits of Anderson. But they do purchase at a cheaper rate, just like we do, because of the fact that we're able to get it for less amount of money since we're associated with IMPA. This year, IMPA was able to cut their wholesale power costs by 5.5%. And we were able then to pass that savings along to the customers. And you may have read in the paper from time to time that there were adjustments to our power rates, and several occasions they went down. So that was a savings again to folks. So that's just an idea of some of the new businesses that are coming into the community, particularly with regards to advanced manufacturing. We had several other businesses come in this year as well that were just sort of mom and pop and more generalized businesses. Everything from Visiting Angels to Sheer Passion, Bridges of Hope, a treatment facility. Sister to Sister, chiropractic a business, Midas Muffler, Hardee's, First Merchants Bank expanded. We opened a new dental center out at the Everett Career Center. Again, all this happened just in 2017. The Summit Salon Academy, also a first choice of women. Cermax had a grand opening as they finally finished their first phase of their build out. Talk about them here in a few minutes as well. Indiana Carpet One, of course, moved out north. We had the Jane Pauley Health Center open over at the Wigwam. Disc golf was opened over at Edgewater Park. Milky Way Coatings out in Meadowbrook. Sugar Fork Crossing is out off of 67th Street, out south off of Columbus Avenue. It's an $18 million assisted living facility. Of course, the Oakley Brothers downtown here at the distillery. We had KT Pond open up over Meadowbrook. Casa opened up over at the old Brandenburg grounds. Talk about this a moment. We did break ground, and we're building right now a new water plant, water plant out in Lafayette Township area. And of course, Liberty Christian broke ground on their new school on 300. So all that investment is going on here in the city limits of Anderson, and all that happened in just 1 year. In terms of downtown, there's a lot going on down here too. As I said, I mentioned a moment ago the Oakley Brothers, and what's really exciting about not just the Jason and Jared Oakley, but it's several folks here in town like them that are the younger folks that are investing in our community. They really see the real vibrancy of the city, and I think today in the paper it was quoted that Jason said something about he could see Anderson different in 5 to 10 years from now. I mean, they really see that they don't understand, quite frankly, why other people aren't coming. They don't understand why there isn't more going on, because they really feel the excitement, and they're putting their money where their heart is. And these folks put a lot of their hard-earned earnings into acquiring the property and building it out. and they really are committed to being a part of Anderson. In fact, the Oakley folks bought a home, Jim Abraham's old home, where Jim lived. They bought his home and moved in. And they have just a brand new little baby. And they're excited. They're excited, and we're excited for them. There's another brewery opening up called Creatures of Habit on Meridian Street. It's about halfway between where the Oakleys are and this building here. We have the new Chinese restaurant over on Main Street, Yosaka Express Chinese restaurant. We've had a new law firm that moved out of one of the bank buildings and repurposed an empty building downtown on 7th Street to GDS Law Group. We have the Farm Society, which Tammy Blevins is getting ready to open up, and she's been in the process of remodeling it for a restaurant over where the old Sherman-Williams property was here in Anderson. They're on Meridian. Weston Appliances have opened up. These folks previously had worked at H.H. Gregg, and they felt like there was a need for another appliance store in town, and so they've decided to open that up and do that their own. So husband and wife. And I've spoken to them, and again, they're really excited about all the things that they're doing. We have a lot of housing projects going on in the downtown area. The former Tower Apartments was recently purchased by a company, and they are in the process of putting $2 million into renovation of the Tower Apartments, and they're going to be market rate apartments. They're going to have I think it's 42 or 43 apartments there. And again, they're going to take where the boat club was. They're anticipating tearing that down, turning that in a parking lot, so they can have more parking there for the tenants. There's work going on at the Delaware Court Apartments, as you know. That was purchased by a company out of Fort Wayne, and they're in process of doing a $1 million renovation on that. Arbor Village, another 94 apartments being out on East State Street, which go down the street over the bridge. Beverly Terrace, 31-bedroom apartment, $500,000 investment going there. So a lot of new housing opportunities going on in terms of the downtown area, again, to bring about to more vibrancy in the downtown community. We have several other developments going on. Obviously, we've all read about Hoosier Park. This last year, they did rebuild a 6,000 square foot administrative building and a guard shack out towards the backside of the building area there, where the horses are kept. But of course, the big news there is the Caesars having interest in acquiring both that and the Shelbyville property for about $1.7 billion. That's with a B. So in case when you played last time you thought if it was in favor of the house, it could be true. I did have a chance to meet with the international president of Caesars. They were in town. They've been in our town. They've been in Shelbyville. I spoke to the Shelbyville mayor a 3 days ago about this, and we're both excited. We think that they will be good community neighbors, as Hoosier Park and Centaur Racing has been for a number of years. These folks have really stepped up when it comes to different issues here in the community, and we believe that Caesars will do the same. So we're looking forward to seeing how that might go forward as they go through their permitting process. We had some more expansion at GTI, another Japanese company, about $150,000. BI Monitoring moved out of the bank building downtown and had a brand new building constructed out by Flagship. And we're happy to watch them to continue to do well. BI Monitoring, of course, monitors folks that are on some form of detention electronically all over the United States. It's not just local. It was started local here in town, but it has become it's used every state in the union, and particularly the federal government uses it a lot. And so it's a very well thought of facility around the court systems here in the United States. I mentioned the Sugar Fork Crossing and Assisted Living. Those folks came to town. They said that they were going to build an $18 million facility. They said it was going to be first class. And when they got done at the end of December of 2017, they were absolutely right. It's an unbelievable facility out there. I can tell you I was out there for the groundbreaking a year earlier when the earth couldn't have been any harder. There was no way to really break any ground. But these folks have lived up to what they said they were going to do, and we're looking forward for all the care that they're going to be able to provide folks in the community and in the region. We've had a number of others. I could read through them quickly. Like I mentioned, Sherwin-Williams that moved here. They relocated and built a brand new building out off of Broadway. Of course, Texas Roadhouse, most of you are familiar with, relocated and has built and moved into a new facility. Northview Church opened over in what used to be a theater over at the Mounts property on the property there. Indiana Flooring, like I said, went out north, and if you've not been out there, it's unbelievable. And again, Indiana Flooring does business not just here in Anderson or Madison County or even in central Indiana. They do business just about everywhere. They've got a huge clientele base. We have ATL Trucking, which is the old Carter Lumber. They have opened up and they are looking for workers. They are hiring right now, and they are paying good wages, and they're going to be really a first-rate trucking firm here in the area. Of course, the Fieldhouse Apartments, the former Anderson High School track across from the Wigwam. They're in the process of building 44 new apartments there. Those are being built and expected towards the end of the year to be completed. We're going to have a Casey's General Store at Mounds and Scatterfield. I think you've probably seen some of that building going on there on that corner. We have Bell Tire Store also on Scatterfield Road, and of course Rickers is going to be building another convenience store over at Broadway and Cross Street, hoping to start sometime this spring, so any time now after the weather gets a little bit better. We have a Dollar General store that's getting ready to be built over on Columbus Avenue, and it's right across the street from the old Delco plant. And when they decided to come here, we talked to them about making sure that their construction and their facade of the building wasn't just some metal building, and so they agreed to brick it, and so we think it'll be a nice addition to that community. It's fairly dense population there, and hopefully they'll take opportunity to be able to shop there and at a place that's close to where they happen to live. There's also some discussions going on right now with the possibility of adding another General Dollar down on Madison Avenue, possibly around the 9th Street area. Jack's Donuts is going to be opening early of this year, 2018, at the University Plaza on the University Boulevard. Now, in addition to all that commercial building going on, we've also been very fortunate to have a lot of residential building going on, comparatively speaking, comparative to prior years. In 2017, we had 16 new homes, permits that were pulled, and new homes being constructed here in Anderson. Compare that to a year earlier, there were 8 homes, and compare that to a year before that, 2015, there were only 4 homes. And that's the way it went for a long time around here, as you know. New building on homes sort of stopped, and people were buying the older homes, and you just really couldn't get a builder to necessarily build a home that made sense, because with the economy the way it was, you could go out and buy a nice home that was obviously not new construction, so people shied away from that. But we have a lot of new folks coming in. We have a lot of new young folks coming in, and they want a home. They want to be in an addition. They want to be in an area where they can bring their small children and grow up and play in the neighborhoods and so forth. And so it's important that we reach out to some of these developers to encourage them to build new homes in the community as well. So we've been very happy that 16 homes in this last year were being built. And that's a $3.9 million investment, so that in itself. So we have a lot of that going on. Now, in addition to all that, we've been pretty busy this year. We had several projects going on in terms of infrastructure and other types of projects around the community. We had a project in the water department called Homewood Addition Main Replacement, where we installed 17,000 foot of 6-inch water main and also 3,000 foot of 12-inch water main. That was replacing aging property. It was about a $1.6 million investment, and what the importance of that is that it increases the water pressure needed for water protection. If you have a fire and somebody goes and gets into the hydrant, you want it to work. You don't want just to sit there and look at you. You need water, and we ended up working on 29 different hydrants, so that was something that was very important. Another thing that we did in terms of water was we put in what we called the Fairview Booster Station. A lot of people don't know, but when we came into office, the Fairview water tower, standing over there at Fairview, was not working. It was basically pretty empty, and the pumps wouldn't work, and the water wouldn't move out of it, which you need, because the reason you have that is it creates two things, obviously storage, but it also creates water pressure, which is used for when you turn on your tap that you get your water. In addition to that, our water comes from different well fields that we have in the community that pass through our two different water plants, the Wheeler plant and the Lafayette plant. Well, those one's out downtown and the other's way out north. Well, we have a lot of water needs out on the south part of Anderson, right out by Nestle, for example, who's one of our largest water users. That water's got to get from there to here, and it's got to move through pressure. Well, the Fairview tower wasn't working as a result of that tank. As a result of that, the water couldn't get forced out of there and forced down to the other water tower that we have down by the flagship, the newest one. So even though that was the newest one that we had erected and put quite a bit of money into that, it was only partially full. It wouldn't fill up because there wasn't enough pressure from the other one. So we repaired all that, and we installed a 3,000 gallon per minute booster into that tank on 25th Street, which now gives us the needed pressure for the flagship area, and it also helps keep the Park Road tank filled now that wasn't going on before. It's one of those projects that people don't hear much about, and it doesn't sound real exciting, but it's pretty important that you stay up on that sort of thing. We also, in talking about fire hydrants and so forth, we began a system-wide hydrant flushing and maintenance program. It hadn't been done for years, and this is very essential in order that we maintain, again, strong fire suppression abilities, and also promotes the water quality. So that's another program that we began and actually got completed at the end of 2017. There was also some problems with some of the valves, and we went ahead and repaired those, which keeps the water from backing up as it moves along, and again to make sure that we have good distribution of our water systems. We also started what was called a hydrological study. Like I said, we get our water for the most part out of wet wells, and we've been searching for additional wells for a couple of reasons. One is we want to get our well fields closer to where the needs are going to be. That way we don't have to ship water from one end of town to the other. A lot of the pipes that we ship water through have gotten very old over the years, and they infiltrate from the groundwater, and the pressure gets lessened and so forth. And so we're searching for new wells, and that study is underway. It started in February 2017, and we hope to have it completed yet this year. In addition to that, we did, at the end of 2016, we did replace 4 new wells at Lafayette Wellfield, but again, our hope is to find new additional wells in different locations. We're not really announcing where we're doing all that because we want to try to keep the ability to acquire that at a reasonable cost. And if everybody thinks we're going to try to get their land for wells, that'd be hard to acquire. We did start and break ground, and it's under construction now, the Lafayette Well Treatment Plant Facility. And depending on how we end up on that, it's going to be between $7.8 and $9.3 million investment. It will increase the capacity of what we can move there. We originally were going to build a little bigger plant with a little higher capacity, but we decided that the infrastructure underneath the ground, like I said earlier, because of its aging condition, really couldn't support as much water as we could have ran through there, and consequently it would have been basically a waste of money. And so we decided to save that to use it for, again, location of other well fields, and possibly down the road another potential plant that would be more centrally located closer to those new well fields once they're located. We are going to start. We're required to do this under an order that we have we entered into under what we call long control planning. Thank you so much. And that is the tanks that we do have. We paint those on I don't know, every 10, 12, 15-year basis. And we're to the point now we're going to have to start repainting some of those. So we're going to start, it'll be a long-term process, probably take 10 years to do. But we'll just do them, sort of one at a time. And we'll repaint them, and we go in, we empty them, we clean them, we make sure they're working, operating properly, and then we fix them inside if they have any issues, and then we repaint them on the outside to make them, appear a little nicer, and all that's going to be starting here pretty soon. As you know, we own our own airport here in Anderson, the Anderson Municipal Airport. They do a great job out there. We started 2 years ago working on rebuilding the runway and repaving it. We had some financial issues with that when we first started, and so it used to be a 2-year program. We moved it into a 3-year program to amortize out the expenses over a period of 3 years. And we now have the first phase of that completed. We're in the process of working on the second phase, and then the third phase will be completed during the first part of 2019. We continue to get a lot of aircraft comes in there. We sell a lot of fuel from other larger, medium-sized airplanes that come in, jet fuel, and we sell it relatively competitively in order to get people in. We do have, as you know, we're now operating out of there the helicopter service that serves St. John's in terms of medical air. That's where they store their helicopters and so forth. That continues to grow. And we continue to do work on that airport. In addition to being the airport, we use it for a number of community activities. They've hosted the Young Eagles Flying event with 260 kids this last year. The Civil Air Patrol continues to use it. Flew about 200 missions. We've had our first annual air show last year, and we're going to shoot to do that again. It was well attended, and people seem to appreciate that. We did have a movie night out there. We had some weather issues, but we were going to try that one more time, I think. Of course, we host the United Way truck pull out at that facility as well. And we did purchase some de-icing equipment. Some of these airports will not fly in, even if there's no problem with the icing of their planes in the summertime. They won't fly in because of insurance problems that they don't have a de-icing available. So we went ahead and purchased that, and so now we have more traffic coming in there. Time for a drink. Thank you again. Our parks are, we have some exceptional parks here. We have several park programs that we're very proud of. We are continuing into this next year, as we have the last 2 years, the expansion of our summer park program for young kids. And this is kindergarten through the 8th grade. And a couple, 3 years ago, there was just one facility that we used for these programs, and now we use 4. We have hooked up with the Anderson Community School Systems, and we use the 10th Street Park. 10th Street School. We also are using the Anderson Elementary, and we also use Liberty Christian. And we work together with them, and they help us with some funding in terms of for meals for the kids. But the kids can come there in the morning and be there all day long, and they're with counselors and with other young folks that are, college-age kids that help put them into programs. We take them on a lot of field trips. We do a lot of things around the area, but we also go down to Indianapolis. We go to the Children's Museum down there and do some other things. And we call it Just a Kid from Anderson program, and it's a good program. In addition to that, we of course continue to have our summer concert series, primarily at Dickman Tower, or Dickman Center rather. We're looking at maybe having one at Shady Side possibly this year. Shady Side Park, we continue to look at improvements. We're looking at some new restrooms for over there for this upcoming year. We have a couple new restroom projects that we want to look at in the parks, and that's definitely one of them that we're looking at trying to do. We did repave this year, or at the end of last year, the Shady Side, around Shady Side Park, about 2.5 miles, a little bit more than 2.5 miles of the trails. We also widened them by about, 2 or 3 feet to make them wider. There was a lot of roots and stuff growing up from the old trees, and so we cut back some stuff, but at the same time we got rid of those roots to try to smooth out the surface for folks that want to walk it or jog it or whatever. Everybody seems to be pretty happy about that. We're looking at trying to do the trails in about three different phases. That would be phase one this year, taking it from that direction, coming back up towards the athletic park area, and doing some paving and possibly doing some trail work along the Grand Avenue area where some of the wooden structures are over by the river. We'd like to get that fixed better, and then eventually shoot out towards the Edgewater Park and then go towards the nature preserve. That trail would probably be more kept in a more natural way, be widened and cleaned up though, but not necessarily paved, because a lot of folks like the nature part of that. We did buy some new equipment this year at the end of last year. For this year, it hasn't been unveiled yet, but it's going to be basically equipment that will allow us to cut back the trail area to keep it open and keep the stuff growing up. One of the problems you run into, if you cut back too much, people complain because they obviously like the nature part of it. But on the other hand, if it grows up too much, they complain it's growing up too much. So that goes back to President Johnson. Okay, that's the way that works. We have at the parks. We also have several different activities we involve ourselves in. The Anderson Youth Basketball League. We also have the cheer and the dance team. We have a spring fall break camps that we've utilized, and then of course, so we always have in the different gymnasiums that we do have, and particularly Geter Center. We have free exercise and physical fitness and wellness programs there. We continue to serve many, many folks throughout the year at the parks. We have some senior programming at the Senior Citizen Center. We're looking to try to expand that. We feel like there needs to be a lot more done in that avenue that hasn't been, so we're looking to come up with some places and ideas and programs that make sense. We did last year revitalize the Crawford Field across from the old guide plant. That was a baseball diamond for years. There was a lot of folks, particularly for adults, that were interested in trying to have a place to play softball. The problem with the Little League fields are that with softball, it's too easy to hit home runs all the time, and it gets a little boring after a while. So we stripped that field back. We pushed back the alignment of the field, and we got us a new scoreboard, and we were able to pay for all that out of community block grant funds. So there weren't any direct tax funds of local folks used for that, but we did revitalize that and turn that into a softball diamond, and it's been used a lot since that point in time. We continue to operate Grandview Golf Course, of course. We also have the Grandview Restaurant that is rented out to a private enterprise, but they basically make it nice for people to come there if they want to sit out on the balcony in the evening and so forth. Plus they serve good food, and it's open. They close down right at the dead of winter, usually from right before Christmas till about mid-March. They're open again now for the rest of the season. It's one of those things, if you haven't been there, you ought to go check it out, especially when it gets nicer weather and sit on the balcony. It's pretty nice, and it's really pretty out there. You can see the river. You can always see the back part of the golf course, and it's just visually, it's a nice place to be. We did just update some computer software for them to help them as they continue to stay in that location and help us by being there. The disc golf course just opened at the end of the year out at Edgewater Park. That's an activity that's a lot of communities are starting to enjoy, and we had some folks that were interested in trying to do that. They partnered with us, and actually the money that was used to develop that was done through private donations. And so we're happy to see that. It's been used quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see if it continues to be used as we go on into the summer. I know a lot of the college-age kids seem to like it, and a lot of the older folks do. And so we'll see how that works. I'm looking forward to seeing how it continues to develop as we get into better weather here. We did do some other minor park revitalizations, but things that needed fixed. There was a footbridge over in Meadowbrook that was all torn up, and we repaired and fixed that. There was some of the Riverwalk area over by the Tom McMahon boardwalk area that needed repaired, and we fixed that as well. Bobber's Cafe out at Shadyside Park, we repaved the parking lot there and repaved the driving entrance and restriped the areas. The Rotary Club installed a new slide at Pulaski Park, which was a donation that they made to the city. That's a really neat slide that I think the kids are going to like. We also had several pieces of equipment that we purchased, and also we had a new piece of equipment put in over at the Shadyside Park. That was a donation of Kyle and Danielle Noon in honor of their child Frederick, who died at birth. And they have a really neat piece of equipment there that you can sit on with an adult can sit there across from a baby who sits in this little piece of equipment that's kind of padded and safe, and you can swing back and forth your little baby without having to worry about child falling or you're falling or something like that. So it's a little neat piece of equipment. We're in the process of getting ready to upgrade the Horner Park at 7th and John Streets. It's actually named after a former mayor, but it's right there at John and 7th, and it's a small park, but it's a very dense populated neighborhood, and we're going to use, again, community block grant funds for that as well. We're getting ready to do some work on the South Side Pool. Last year we ran into some issues with that, and we're wanting to get it squared up and properly for the summertime when we reopen. Again, we're going to do some new restrooms at Shadyside. In addition to that, we have a shelter house over there that needs work, and we're looking at doing those improvements as well. Now, I say all that, and you think, this stuff costs a lot of money. And it does cost a lot of money, but we're very fortunate that we do have community block grant funds. And if you watch the news a lot in recent times, you saw where the president had projected a budget to the Congress that he had suggested that was going to cut all of the community block grant funds from every community in the United States. And they did the same thing last year, and the different city mayors across the country got up and lobbied hard against that with their congressional folks, and the Congress said, no, we're not going to do that, and they didn't cut it. So we still had the money this year. He came right back around again and said, we're going to cut it again. Not just cut it, eliminate it. And but again, fortunately, Congress said, no, we're not going to do that. And so they just passed this most recent budget that they finally passed. Not only did they not cut it, but they actually increased that budget. And so we're going to see if we end up getting any extra money. It'd be great if we did, but I was mainly worried about losing any money. But that money, we get about $1.4 million a year from that. And we use it for all sorts of projects. And it typically goes into low mod income areas, but the city of Anderson has a lot of low mod income areas. So the consequence is a lot of people get to take advantage of those funds that come in, and it doesn't cost us at least any local tax dollars, and we're able to do a lot with that. In addition to that, we've had some very good, sound financial practices in the last couple of years here in the city. And I've been very proud of my controller. His name's Doug Whittam. He's a former State Board of Accounts auditor. In fact, he's a CPA. He's got a lot of great educational background, but he's got a lot of personal background. What's interesting about Doug is that he was actually the State Board of Accounts person that audited Anderson over a period of years. So he was very familiar with Anderson. And so one day we asked him if he was ever interested in a career change. And he said, I think I might be. So anyway, he came to work for us, and he's done a great job. And an example of that is that when we came into office, what they called the operating balance, which is basically the money that you have left over at the end of the year that you operate on as you move into the first part of the year, was initially about $4.2 million. That figure was actually a little inflated because we had a pay that had not yet been taken off of that, charged up against that, of about $800,000. So really it was closer to about $3.2 million operating balance. At the end of 2016, we'd built that up to $6.2 million. And then this year, at the end of December 31st, we ended up with $8.5 million. And that's probably about as far as we're going to push that, because we don't want to just have money sitting around for the purpose of having money. But our budget is big enough and our expenses are big enough that we really want to set up where we don't ever have to run into the red as we're paying bills. It's sort of like, you're paying your bills at home and you got a check coming, but it hadn't come into your bank yet, so you write that check hoping for the money to get there. We don't want to run into that. So we want to keep our finances in the black, and with this type of operating balance, we'll be able to do that. But that's a result of Doug just doing a really great job as our controller. In addition to that, he's done a great job in investing the monies that we do have that set there until such time as they're used. In 2015, the amount of interest that we earned was $104,000 at the end of 2015. At end of 2016, he had reinvested that and figured out some better ways to do it that brought us $270,000 at the end of 2016. But amazingly, at the end of 2017, for that year only, $785,000 in interest. Compare $785,000 to $104,000. It's pretty amazing, really. And part of that was done, we obviously had a little bit of bump in interest rates, but not enough to justify that. He just was a little wiser in selecting where we should invest our money in terms of safe but secure and somewhat liquid assets, but it still brought us quite a bit of money. And when you have the tax cap problem that we have in Indiana, which is all property taxes are capped at 1% of for residences, for example. While that's great for homeowners, it really takes a lot of money out of the pockets of local units of government. And so, anytime you can come up an extra $600,000-$700,000, it's on an annual basis. That's a big deal, and so I appreciate all the work and effort that he's done there. We did this last year, have a surplus auction sale. We hadn't had one in several years. And we were able to raise $60,000 from selling a lot of stuff that for the most part, wasn't worth a whole lot, quite frankly. But folks like to buy stuff at auctions and things. Sorry, Dick, another person. But it did raise us some money, and we at least got, and we also cleared out some stuff, which was nice. Also, one of the things we did financially is we paid off some debts that we had lingering that had a little higher interest rate. It wasn't a big savings, but we had the money and we just did it. We had an airport hangar lease of $166,000. We had some police cars that had an old lease of $93,000, and we had a city hall vehicle of about $18,000. We paid all that off, which meant that we stopped that future payments having to occur, which means that the future years that we would have been budgeting that money for those payments, we don't have to do that now, and we'll be able to put that money to use somewhere else and also save the interest on it. We do a lot of things in the city a lot of people don't know about. Think about Anderson TV. Chet's here this evening. Thank you, Chet, for being here. Chet, Anderson Television, if you don't know, is a combination of a partnership between the City of Anderson, the community school system, Anderson University, and the public library. But the reality is it's housed downstairs in the Anderson City Hall. All the employees that work there are Anderson City employees, and really all the funding that comes into it. Other than when they first started it off, there was some donations from folks, but from that point forward, it's always been a City of Anderson funded project. These guys work hard. Chet, as he's doing here this evening, comes out a lot in the evenings and weekends and so forth, as well as some of the other staff. And last year they produced and filmed over 120 videos here in Madison County, and of course then we put them up on Channel 18 on Comcast and Channel 99. Is that right, Chet? And on the other AT&T. That's where I got to see Steve the other night, talking about the river and a lot of other programs that Steve does here at the Historical Society. And it's just it's good to have public access television. So we're happy to have that, and we're particularly happy to have it down here in Anderson. And we did purchase this year, and we're using it one right now. Some new equipment, some new cameras, and some of the stuff was pretty worn out. They were still using standard definition and so forth. So we've changed some of those things up. We continue to be energized and do things with regards to projects not just downtown, but across the community. Everything from our Independence Day parades to Christmas parades, celebrations, and so forth. We, of course, ran the job fair last year, and we had a lot of folks come out, a lot of companies come out and participate in the job fair, and we were proud of that. I talked a little bit about our community block grant funds. Again, the department that oversees that's called our Department of Community Development. Our Community Development Department involves itself with a lot of other entities here in the community, and with those communities, we provide funding in order. With those organizations, we provide funding in order that we can do a lot of different things. We've been involved in public housing counseling. We've been involved in public housing education. We've helped folks with owner-occupied rehab of their homes. We were also starting started recently a new tenant-based rental assistance program where we're using Women's Alternatives, the Anderson Trustee's Office, and also United Way. And those folks are feeding us through the Anderson Housing Authority. They're feeding us clients that we think could benefit by having rental assistance, and then that's being reimbursed through our CDBG funds, actually called Home Funds, but it's the same program. And so we think we're providing a lot of community service by doing that. Also, as you know, we've done a lot of blight elimination over the last couple of years. We've torn down 70, 80 houses or more. We did 10 this year alone. We're doing 2 this week, so we're doing so many. It keeps a little difficult to keep track of. We use 3 different funding sources to do that. One is community block grant funds. One is the blight elimination program funds. It's from the hardest hit funds coming from the state government, and also funded through the feds. And then also we have some community or some civil service or civil dollars that we get from our regular budget process that we throw in there as well. We used this year also some of those community funds to repave the Streety Park and the Geter Center baseball diamond, or not baseball, but basketball courts. We also have provided assistance to the alternatives folks to help with shelters for homeless and also for children's and educational programs. This year we're looking at putting, and actually we're in the process of this right now, putting up some equipment at Jackson Street Park, exercise equipment around the walking trails there. We're also going to put in some new equipment at Belmont. We redid the Belmont Park last year, but all the equipment is for sort of medium-aged kids, and we wanted something for a little bit of smaller children, so we came up with a piece of equipment. We're going to reinstall that. We also have, of course, run the CATS system, the bus system. That is a 6 to 6, 6 in the morning, 6 at night. These folks work hard. They transport lots and lots of people. In 2017, we had 183,000 trips with the buses, and we had 24,660 with the Nifty Lift. Last year, we bought 2 new Nifty Lift buses, and we refurbished 2 of our regular buses. This year, we're going to buy 2 more Nifty Lift buses as well. That being in 2018. We purchased a brand new radio system and also a video system to be able to have video cameras and monitors on the buses as well, in order for everyone's protection. We put a new roof on the building that we're doing. We've repainted it, and we're also looking at some different alternatives of expansion of the bus services. We're also in the process, as you know, you probably heard about a little bit, talked about last year, continue to work on getting the bus terminal. The bus terminal, which would be located down at 13th and Jackson, is right now designed to be a 3-story multi-use building that would be used for both the bus terminal as well as some other activities. The cost of that's about $8 million. We have acquired now, last year we were around $4 or $5 million on acquirements, but now we're at $6.3 million that we've acquired through the federal government, and we're going to match that with both CDBG funds and most likely TIF dollars to round out the difference. We're in the process right now of doing a property acquisition. We've hired a company to assist us with that. The folks that owned that property previously had passed away, and just recently they transferred the property to an owner that we can actually talk to and deal with, and so that's going to help us move forward on our acquisition of that. We continue to do work in our street department. Of course, last year we purchased 3 new large tandem axle plow trucks. We're trying to stay on top of that with all the salt and the asphalt that runs through those beds. Those trucks wear out over a period of time. There's not that many miles on them, but they really get worn out because of the type of work that they do. So we purchased 3 new vehicles, and we did put aluminum beds on these, so they should last for several more years longer than they normally do. Last year we were able to pave the entrance of the Grandview Golf Course, which was in really bad shape. We replaced the culverts over there as well. Our street department, in addition to doing some paving, curbs, sidewalks, and so forth, also do a lot of mowing of empty lots. That's always an issue for us. We don't have to, but if we didn't, they'd be this high, and people would be complaining about the mosquitoes and everything else. And it's a safety hazard, and it's dangerous to the community to have that, leave it like that. So we go ahead and we mow them off. And last year we did over 1,200 vacant properties. This year we're looking at continuing to do the same. We're also continuing to do more curb and sidewalk repair, and also more paving. In fact, in the next couple of weeks we'll be releasing the paving list that we anticipate doing through the street department. We're also going to be contracting out some of our streets to be done as well. Last year we finished up doing the 8th Street Bridge. That was a $2.2 million or $2.1 million project. We received half of that money through a state grant that we received. The other half we used from some local street funds that we had available. So to give you an idea, we did that from Range Line Road to where the curve is. As you go out to the country off of 8th Street by Park Road, you go by there. They're at Winding Way, which is the city limits. So one end of the city limits, the other city limits, $2.1 million. Now we did do a lot of extra curb cuts there. The federal law requires us to put in handicap accessible ramps at every curb cut. But you don't have to do it if it's at a private property, or you don't have to do it at certain alleyways. But when I went through and surveyed it, I said that didn't make any sense, because if I need that handicap accessibility and I'm going down the street and there's a business there and I don't have a way to get off or on, it's not really very usable to me. So we went ahead and installed additional cuts to make sure that folks that have those special needs can get around a lot easier. And so we took care of that. We continue to work with our water pollution control folks. Again, we're under a long-term control plan to make sure that we eliminate what they call overflows that occur during certain conditions. One of the things we did this year was last year we did the Greens Branch sewer line relining project, which was right off of 8th Street. It was a $4.3 million project, and we installed a liner inside a pre-existing pipe that had been built years ago. We feel like, talking about history, we feel like it's about a 100-year-old constructed pipe put in by folks by hand. And you think about the paved streets that we see in certain streets here in town. This culvert was completely bricked in a circle all the way around, 96 inches in diameter. It means anybody in his room could walk into it and walk through it. It was a huge line, but it was starting to break down because of its age and condition. And so we had it relined, and it pumps about 50% of the daily flow of sewage that comes in from the community and goes out to the water, the sewage disposal plant. About 50% passes through there. So it was very important to get that fixed, and we did that. We've also this year completed our inventory of streets. We're required every 2 years to go through and sort of grade each and every street to see which ones are the best and which ones are the worst. That way it gives us an idea where we should be fixing stuff if you can't visually see it already, but it is required. We did finish that project just recently. We also are in the process of finishing up our ADA plan that's also required every 2 years. We also were involved in the replacement of over 600 signs. You may remember last year driving around seeing a lot of signs painted orange. Those were signs that were scheduled for replacement, and that was under a federal mandate. And fortunately, we didn't have to pay for that, but we did make sure that all that got done in conjunction with Madison County Council of Governments. Also this year, in regards to stormwater, we replaced the culvert out by Shady Side. If you drove out there near the lake, you might have seen it was closed down for a while. It was a $250,000 project. We also replaced the culvert over at Rabel Avenue, which was a smaller, $47,000 job. We've replaced several storm drains in the community, about $100 and some thousand that we used there. We are going to apply this year, or are applying right now, with the Indiana Department of Transportation for another community crossings grant. Again, that's what we use for the 8th Street Bridge, and we're looking at doing another $2 million of projects there if we get that granted, and we're hoping that will occur this year. The other paving we'll be doing will be coming from our Wells tax and our local road and street tax as well. Of course, we also have police and fire protection that we all enjoy. We're very fortunate to have our police department that continues with a very strong community policing. Some of you may belong to the Crime Watch programs. We have both Crime Watch, and we also have Senior Link program, which is in association with United Way. And we reach out to folks that are seniors that want to be checked upon from time to time and make sure that they are checked upon when needed. And of course, our Crime Watch, which is more neighborhood-based now than they used to be, we think helps continue to keep our crime in check. This year, you may have seen in the paper, it was interesting, I thought, the statistics, because according to the newspaper report, the county, just the county itself, and I'm talking about the unincorporated areas, had a 22% reduction in burglaries for 2017. And when I checked our statistics for the city of Anderson, we had a 21% increase, or decrease. So I thought that was interesting that they were both similar. We did have 520 burglaries a year before, but that was down to 410. Our thefts went down 20% as well. We did in January 2016 start a burglary theft unit at the Anderson City Police Department, and all they do is focus on burglaries and thefts. And last year, 2017, they recovered and returned to the folks that were the victims of these crimes. They recovered and returned $353,000 in merchandise that had been taken, and was able to identify where it came from and get it back to the rightful owners, and only had $15,000 estimated property still remaining that they hadn't identified the owners. This year, in 2018 so far, we've recovered and returned $143,000, and that's all through the efforts of the burglary theft unit, which is primarily right now being worked by two guys, and they do really a great job. So Scott Anderson and Trent Chamberlain, and they're both APD detectives, and they do a really good job at that. We also, the police, we host block parties. We have had 5 last year. We hope to do the same this year. We also have an annual Anderson Police Citizens Academy. We've had 2 graduating classes come out of that, and it's basically where members of the public can come, and they spend about a 6-7 week program on Saturdays. It does take some commitment from them, but they learn a lot about what the local police do, and helps them see some of the inner workings of the police department. And everybody I've talked to that's done that has found it a really good experience. Last year, we purchased 20 brand new police cars. Police cars hadn't been purchased, new ones, for some time. In addition to that, this year we're purchasing 20 new police cars, and those actually will be hitting the road here any time. And those are all patrol cars. In addition to that, we've replaced some detective cars, I believe 3 last year, and I'm not sure what's on the agenda for this year yet, but that'll put us at somewhere around 45 to 46 cars in 2 years. And we also changed our take-home policy to set it up where folks weren't driving far outside the city and parking their cars and leaving them there for a week or 2 at a time before they come back into the community. We wanted to make sure that each police officer had an assigned car that they considered theirs. That way, instead of driving a car, for 3 shifts and wearing it out, these cars will last for many, many more years this way. Plus, people will feel like more of an ownership and take pride in their car and make sure it's maintained. And so that's what we've done. Is every police officer has been assigned his own police car. With the fire department, we continue to do a lot of public safety features. We do have the public fire safety house over at the library that we continue to use. And we run a lot of kids through that on a regular basis. We have a Get Alarm program. Last year we gave away 1,000 smoke detectors to the fire department. We also replaced our self-breathing apparatus that wears out from time to time, and we had a grant of $286,000, and we were able to replace that. We got a new heavy rescue truck for $440,000, a new ambulance for $150,000, and we're in the process, if you don't know, of remodeling the headquarters downtown. That project will be right about $1.1 million. We may come in a little bit under budget on that, but it's completely took all the windows out, resealed them, replaced them resealed them because they had not been put in right when the headquarters was built several years ago. We learned, we didn't know that at the time. We replaced the heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems at the headquarters, and we're reconfiguring the inside to make it more user-friendly under the present way we find ourselves today than what used to be when it was originally constructed. Had we rebuilt another headquarters instead of that, even a scaled-down headquarters, it would have cost 6 or 7 times that amount of money. If we had tried to replace the exact same type of headquarters today in size and footprint that one is, the money it'd be outrageous. It'd be like $17-18 million. When we took our architects and contractors through there to look at the building, they looked at it and they said the way it was constructed in terms of its, if you ever inside the bays of the fire department, they have like catacomb, concrete catacomb type of construction. They said you can't even afford to do that anymore. It really wouldn't even be possible to duplicate it. So to spend 7 times less than what it would have cost to build a much smaller station and set it up where it'll last for many, many years was clearly the cost-efficient thing to do. We've also remodeled fire station number 2, and we're in the process of cleaning up another one. So by the time we get done, we'll have all the stations. You remember a few years ago there was issues of mold and so forth. We'll have all that rectified, and so we're happy about what's going on there. Both in police and fire, we're in the process of the hiring process. We're getting ready to announce new hires in both police and fire really in the next few days. And I suspect there'll be 6-7 of each department hired to take place of folks that have left through attrition and so forth. One of the things we did this year that I was very proud about was we held our annual Mayor's Ball that I started when I came into office to basically help and assist with kids in the school system. And what we do is we hold the ball and we raise the funds, and then we have a grant program where we allow teachers in our school systems to apply for special grants that they will use in the classroom with their particular kids. And it usually has a ceiling of $2,000 is the maximum you can receive for a given program. And this year we were able to raise and give out $40,000. And we were able to give, it ended up averaging a total of 40 grants. Some got 2,000, some got a few hundred, some of them didn't apply for more than that. But anyway, we were able to give those out, and I can tell you that the kids and the teachers were really excited because today, a lot of the funding is just not there for the teachers to do some of the stuff that they need to do. And what this does is it allows the teachers to come up with a project or an idea, or maybe they need some items that they can actually purchase and use without having to go to the schools to try to get those funds that are usually not existent, because we know the schools are having financial problems as well. So it's just our way. As you probably know, the mayor doesn't have a direct involvement in the school system, but it's our way to show that we support the teachers and what they do and all the kids that are in our schools. So we're proud of that effort. We run, in addition to that, we involve ourselves in bringing together what we call a manufacturers roundtable. We do this usually quarterly. We bring in people from the manufacturing world, also other employers and educators, particularly with regards to high schools and also our college folks. Anderson University, Ivy Tech, Purdue Polytechnic, and they come together, and we get together in groups like this, and then we talk about the things that we need to do to make sure that we get our workforce up to where it needs to be, that we can match our skilled workforce with employers' needs. And then we, of course, encourage our employers to pay decent wages to attract folks as well. So we do that on a quarterly basis, and we do it at different locations, and it seems to also help in networking and letting some of these employers get to know each other and have a little bit of camaraderie between themselves and also the educators and also the city government. Plus, we find that our educators are more and more willing to make their teachings and their curriculum set to be relevant to the community that we live in, because it's very important that as folks go through schools that they be able to get the skills they need to go out and get these jobs that I've been talking about. If they can't do that, then everything we're doing really doesn't mean a lot. And so it's important that these folks have a choice to be able to stay here and make a decent living, but they've got to get their education in first before they can do that.